Welcome back. In the third part of the Omnis Studio application course. We are now going to develop the buttons and save the records for the orders in the database. We even can go one level deeper. We can actually see that there are some additional buttons that are marked as undefined. Also, we do not see any product pictures. The reason for this is that we have indeed columns that have values, but those columns are not assigned to the properties of the grid field. Put accessory content to 5 and accessory value to 6. And for the pictures, image col to 4. Another test now shows pictures for the submenu and text for the checkout button in level 2. In the third level, we now see pictures for every product and the text for the order button that we're now going to develop. An event method can have a so-called event parameters. You'll be able to see those when you are inside your event method and then press F9 or Command 9. The catalog will then pop up. Look in the variable group. In this case, we find pwhat that tells us the button in the list was used. You can insert a code line above the selected one using Control or Command I. Let us prepare an if statement. Using a breakpoint, we're able to stop the code execution and see the contents in pwhat when the accessory button was passed. Now open the browser and click on the order button in the list. In the event parameter pwhat, the value is 2. We compare pwhat with value 2. The value 2 is equal to the constant KJS native list part accessory, which is easy to read in our code. As we deal with several lists, variables, we should use a switch statement in order to distinguish. We compare the content of the variable iCurrentList name if this is the product list, Control or Command N for the next line. With the do command, we are setting the current line of the product list, actually iProductList.$line, using the value of the event parameter p group. Then add another line using Control or Command N. Now we will access the nested list inside the product list. Using the line that was clicked on, we get this information from the event parameter p row. There's a column in the sublist that is called amount. We count up this value with 1, actually the same notation plus 1. Let us have a closer look at it. We can open the list using the context menu item variable. Let us step slowly through the code. When we set $line of the product list, this line becomes the current one. We can see this inside the variable because of the lowercase c. We can also open the sublist. When making this a little bit wider, we can see the column amount. Step over this line that counts up the amount. And let us open the sublist again to verify whether the value has been set correctly. There we now have one order in the amount column. In the upper level, there is a checkout button. When the user clicks there, then we are going to call the checkout method. I press go and we will test one manual level higher. When we now step through the code, we can see how it goes into the correct branch. The back button does not make much sense when we are already in the highest manual level. Same with the header. Therefore, we add a line of code to make the top container become invisible when we are in level 1. We add a code line in $set menu of the grid component. With the do command, we reference the top container that is in the current instance, is the reference to the current instance. There are objects, and one of them is the top container that we make visible or invisible. We can use the variable iManual level. If this is greater than 1, the top container will become visible. If the value is not greater than 1, it becomes invisible. The initial value should be then set in the visible property of the component in the class to make it invisible for the start. The current test shows that the top container that will be hidden in the first manual level, actually when the table list is shown. Now we need a button to send the orders that we have been marked in the product list to the kitchen. To do this, we add another button inside the top container. Give it a name and the text shall become order. Make sure it is positioned in all layout breakpoints. A double click on it takes us to its event method. We will now loop through the product list using a for loop. In the field name we enter iProductList.line, which will count up. Down here you define the start and the end value. Using $line count means that we loop until the end of the list. Now I call a method inside iOrderRow, which is based on a table class, and pass in the sub list of the current line of the product list as well as the table number, which is the line number of the table list. As a return, I want to add a local variable called OK. This will be used for the error handler if something goes wrong inside the $save method. Now let's use the if command to check the OK variable. If all goes well, we can then update the table status. We will add a method $updateStatus inside the table class of the table list. We will pass in the table number as the first parameter. The second parameter determines whether the table is busy, like in this case, or available again. After that, the manual level can be set back. In case of an error, we need to send an error message to the remote form instance, which is $cinst, which will pop up on the client. In the supertable class, there is a method $getErrorText. Okay, we need to implement the missing $updateStatus method. The table class can be found in the database layer folder. A double click opens the editor of the table class. Using the context menu, we add a new method $updateStatus. We will add two parameters to this method. The first one is pTableID, which is the table number. The second one is a Boolean parameter that tells us whether the table is available or not. Then we start the command begin statement. In the next line, we need the sta command that allows to enter SQL update free tables. That is the name of the table. In the next line, we automatically have the next star command when using controller command N. Set table taken equal. Now we use a so-called bind variable using an @ sign and square brackets. The bind variable pTableTaken will be evaluated in the database access module and correctly set for the database that we use. Then we compare using a where clause and the parameter table ID also in square brackets. There is no need for a bind variable since this is an integer variable. Another code line shows the next sta command. We do not need it. Click on it and type end statement to close the statement block. Next line, we need an if calculation. There we execute a $prepare on the statement object. If this was successful, we will then perform an execute on the statement object. In column 2, in the current line of the table list, we assign the text that is displayed. We can use the pick function. The first parameter determines which one of the following parameters will be used. If the value of pTableTaken is 0, then the table is available. If the value is 1, then the table is not available. If it fails, we're going to call $SQLerror of the superclass. We can soon test this, but before we do this, we need to fix some minor issues. We do not have any feedback when clicking the order button in the product list. Preferably, the button should not show how many times the user clicked on the button. We can easily change this. Let us add 2 lines of code in the event method of the grid. We need to declare a local variable. We calculate the variable with the value of the column amount of the sublist. Same notation as in the line above. Now we reference the column's button text of the sublist in the current line. And we assign the value from the variable. Save with Control or Command S. Let's see what happens now. Great, the value is displayed, but unfortunately the buttons shrink. But this can easily be fixed using the JST function. The function receives as a second parameter a formatting string. In this case, the minus forces a right justified 4 digits number with prefixed zeros. Voila, this works now. The main order button in the top container seems to work. Unfortunately, it will not become invisible when pressed, so one could push it several times. We can change this in the event of the button. Let's add a line. $C field references the current field because the method is located at that field. Let's make it invisible. But when we do this, we need to make it visible later on. Actually, every time the order button in the product list is used. Since the method is not at the main order button, we need to reference the current instance. So $cinst.$obj. And then the name of the button and the property visible. We assign k-true. The main order button will now appear when one of the order buttons of the product list has been used. In addition, we should make the button invisible when the form opens the first time. We can do this in the property manager for the button in design mode. Well, now we can test if the order is really saved. Let us look in the summary list of the table. The order is listed, but there is one thing missing. There are no icons. Let us get those. Let us get those from the resource library. Click on Libraries and then onto Recent Libraries. There you should find your resource library. In the folder System Classes, you will find the class #icons where I prepared the icons for you. Now drag the class #icons from the resource library into the folder System Classes of your own library. Confirm with Yes. When you now refresh the browser and you test the summary of this table, you should see the icons now. This was already the third part. In the next part, we are going to add a picture as a CI in our application, and we are going to create another remote form that will list all the orders for our kitchen or bar staff.